Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Helios deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck was actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Izzy. And this deck is wild. This is actually a 60 card version of Helios, which is absolutely crazy. And it's crazy how many life points you can actually gain in this build and how massive the monsters can get. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can come for our notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like in your name description every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. And definitely give Izzy some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this one, guys. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Helios the Primordial Sun. This card is definitely a 3 of in the build because it's actually special summonable off your copy of Macrocosmos, which is super cool. But this card also has an insane ability. This card's attack and defense become the total number of monsters that are banished times 100, so this card can get massive really quickly. We then play 3 copies of Helios Duo Majestus. This card is also a 3 of in the build and is so easy to summon out to your side of the field because this card can be special summoned by attributing a copy of Helios the Primordial Sun, which is a really cool ability. And it also has the ability attack and defense of this card become the number of monsters that are banished times 200 points, which is a really cool ability. We then play 3 copies of Helios Trismegistus. This card is insane, and how we actually OTK our opponent, it's actually really easy to put this card out on your side of the field. It has the ability that you can special summon this card by attributing 1 copy of Helios Duo Majestus, and this card's attack and defense are each equal to the number of banished monsters times 300. And after this card attacks, it can make 1 more attack if your opponent controls a monster, which is great that this card can attack multiple times because it gets absolutely massive depending on how many monsters are currently banished. We then play 3 copies of Golden Homunculus. Golden Homunculus is crazy. This card is a crazy powerful boss monster that gets huge and starts at 1500 attack points. It has the ability to increase the attack and defense points of this card times 300 for each of your banished cards, and this card can get really big really quickly with cards like Pot of Desires. We then play 3 copies of Grand Manju Da Iza. It wouldn't be a banished deck without Grand Manju, and this card is one of the best normal summons in the entire deck because this card has the ability to gain attack and defense equal to the number of your banished cards times 400, so this card gets massive really quickly to be able to OTK. A really funny thing is to actually set this card to your side of the field, have a bunch of cards banished, and let your opponent attack into this card because it flips up massive, which is just really funny to be able to do. Let your opponent OTK themselves. We then play 3 copies of Eater of Millions. Eater of Millions is great in this deck as a 3-up because it has the ability, it cannot be normal summon or set. It must be special summon from your hand by banishing 5 or more cards from your hand, field, and or extract face down, and gains 100 attack and defense for each face down banished card, and it cannot be tributed nor used for the material for a fusion, synchro, or XZ summon, but you can use it for link summons, which is pretty much all we play in the extract. And it also has the ability once per turn. At the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can banish that opponent's monster face down. We then play 3 copies of Necroface. Necroface is great in this deck as a 3-up because this card helps you recycle your resources, also gets huge by recycling those resources, and if this card is banished, each player banishes 5 cards from the top of their deck or their entire deck if less than 5, which is hilarious when you basically deck your opponent out where they don't have any more cards to draw because you've used multiple copies of Necroface, which is just really cool. So that's it for the banished monsters. Let's get into the tech monsters we're also playing in this deck. So for the tech monsters, we're going to start off with 2 copies of Danger Bigfoot. Danger Bigfoot is great in this deck as a 2-of, and all of your danger monsters that we're playing actually share a really cool common effect. As you can reveal this card in your hand, and your opponent randomly chooses 1 card from your entire hand, and you discard the chosen card. And if the discarded card was not the danger monster that you reveal, you special summon that danger that you did reveal, and then you draw a card. And all of your danger monsters have unique abilities that, if they're discarded, go off. with this card having the ability, if this card is discarded, then you get to target one face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it. Also comes out as a 3,000 attack point monster, which is great. We then play a single copy of Danger Thunderbird. Thunderbird is great in this deck as a one-of because it has the ability that if this card is discarded, you get to target a set card your opponent controls and destroy it. We then play a single copy of Danger Ogopogo. Ogopogo is great in this deck as a one-of because it has a really cool ability. If this card is discarded, you get to send a danger card from your deck to the graveyard, except another copy of this card, but you want to play a bunch of different danger names in the deck, which is just really nice to be able to do, which is why I played the single copy of Ogopogo. We then play 2 copies of Danger Nessie. Danger Nessie is great in this deck as a 2-of. You really don't want to play 3 of this card because you don't want to draw into multiple copies of this card, even though it's a 60 card deck. But this card has the ability, if this card is discarded, then you can add a danger card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of Nessie, which is great. We then play a single copy of Danger Dogman. Now, I really like Dogman in this deck because it has the ability that if this card is discarded, you can have all face-up monsters that your opponent currently controls lose 1,000 attack until the end of the turn, which is actually a pretty cool effect in a deck like this that can OTK. We then play 2 copies of Danger Mothman. Danger Mothman is really good as a 2-of because if this card is discarded, both players draw a card and then both players discard a card. We then play a single copy of Danger Chupacabra. Chupacabra is really cool as a 1-of, as if this card is discarded, it has the ability to target a danger monster in the grave and special summon it, except another copy of Chupacabra. We then play a single copy of the Danger Noodle or Danger Tsuchinoko. This card has the ability, if this card is discarded, you special summon it anyways. We then play a single copy of Danger Jackalope. Danger Jackalope has the ability, if this card is discarded, then you get to special summon a danger monster from your deck in defense position, except another copy of this card. We then play a really spicy tech card that I'm actually going to lay face down, and we're going to play Guess That Card. And I guarantee you guys are probably not going to get this one. This one is a hilarious one-of in the deck. It is just super fun to be able to play. But before we reveal this, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Definitely hit that bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad because we're on the road to 100K subscribers. So let's go ahead and check out this card in 3, 2, 1, and definitely comment down below what you think this card is. And it's actually going to be a really spicy old school card, and it's actually going to be Cyberjar. Cyberjar is a wild card to be able to play in the deck, and it's really cool to be able to special summon out multiple monsters to your side of the field, because this card has the ability, if it's flipped face up, you destroy all monsters on the field, and both players pick up 5 cards from the top of their deck, and special summon all level 4 or lower monsters that were picked up in those 5 cards that each player picked up, and then add the rest to your hand. I love that about this card. It's really cool. You have to special summon the monsters in either face up attack or face down defense, but it's really cool in this build to be able to actually play Cyberjar, and it's such a cool tech card to be able to just throw him face down defense, throw something like a copy of Macrocosmos face down, and then just watch all your opponent's cards get banished. We then play a single copy of Morphing Jar to go along with it. This card just helps us refill our hand, and also just is really good with the danger cards. We then also play 3 copies of Shifter. Shifter is just basically like a win button. If you drop this card at the right time against the right deck, you're probably going to win the game. And this card is really insane. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, guys, we're going to start with a single copy of Card Destruction. Card Destruction is really nice to be able to get cards out of our hand and just get to the exact cards that we need, while also potentially messing our opponent's plays up, because we can use this card under cards like Shifter and Macrocosmos, which is just hilarious. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Desires. Pot of Desires is really good as a 3-of in the build to basically just use this card to get a bunch of cards banished, while also giving us a draw 2 to make cards like Grand Manju absolutely massive. We then play 3 copies of Allure of Darkness. Allure of Darkness is really good because we have cards that want to be banished in this deck, like Necroface, to be able to get their effects to go off, and this card just helps us out by drawing 2 cards and getting one of our cards that we want banished, and you can also use extra cards like your dangers to pay the cost for this card. We then play 3 copies of Scapegoat. Scapegoat is great in this deck as a 3-of, just to be able to generate us tokens so we can link climb. You can also use this card defensively to be able to set this card to your side of the field, and then just generate a bunch of tokens on your side of the field that your opponent's going to have to swing into to protect your life points. But this card is great in the deck to help us basically link climb during our turn once we flip this card during our opponent's turn to be able to just go into some really powerful cards. We then play 3 copies of Chaos Zone. Chaos Zone is a really cool field spell that has the ability each time a monster is banished, you place a chaos counter on this card for each of those monsters. And once per turn, you can remove 4 or more chaos counters from your side of the field and then target one banished monster with a level equal to the number of chaos counters removed and special summon that target, which is great about this card to be able to use because we have a lot of cards that we can bring back from being banished, like our Helios monsters, which is just so cool. This card is definitely a 3-of in the build. We then play 3 copies of Soul Absorption. Soul Absorption is hilarious with your copies of Pot of Desires because it basically lets you gain like 5,000 life points. Because for every card that is banished, you gain 500 life points. So if you activate this card with Pot of Desires, you gain 5,000 life points. This card is crazy with the amount of cards that get banished and how many life points we actually gain in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Dimensional Fissure. Dimensional Fissure is just great because we want to get cards banished, so any monster sent to the graveyard is banished instead, making this card a definite 3-of in the build. So, that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're just going to be playing 3, and that's going to be 3 copies of Macrocosmos. Macrocosmos is definitely a 3-of. As when this card is activated, you can special summon a copy of Helios the Primordial Sun from your hand or deck. And when this card is face up in the field, any card sent to the grave is banished instead, which is great about this card. Make this card a definite 3-of in the deck. It's super helpful to help us get our copy of Helios on our side of the field. It's just a really good card overall to get cards banished. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to start off with a single copy of Yugioh Skull Dread. You can easily climb into this card to help us draw 4 and put 3 back, but it's really good in this deck because it helps us special summon a monster from our hand. Plus, you don't super need the extra deck with this build because you're summoning out cards like Grand Manju. So the extra deck is just basically options that you can play. We then play a single copy of Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax because you can step into this card, and it's really good when you use a copy of IP to step into this card. And with Scapegoats, makes it really easy to make this card. You play a single copy of Access Code because you can make it, and it does pop multiple cards on the field and gets absolutely massive. 1 copy of Appaloosa. In case you're going first, you do want to be able to put this card out on your side of the field to have multiple monster negates. 1 copy of Decode Talk or Heat Soul. You can make this card by making cards like Link Spider and then cards like IP to be able to step into this card, making it really easy to make this card to get you basically a draw 2, which is super helpful. We then play a single copy of Nightmare Unicorn to spin stuff, 1 copy of Nightmare Phoenix to pop spells and traps, a single copy of Nightmare Cerberus to pop monsters, a copy of SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight is interchangeable with anything else you want to put in this extra deck, like a Link 2 or a Link 3. You can change it out very easily in this build because you don't super need everything in the extra deck. You're basically just focusing around using the main deck. So the extra deck is, again, just options. So you can change this card out if you want to for something else, like a copy of, say, Boral Sword if you wanted to. We then play a single copy of Pentastag. Pentastag is really cool in this deck because it helps your monsters do piercing damage. This is actually a card I would recommend keeping in the extra deck because it helps you basically just do piercing. We then play a single copy of IP. IP is really good in this deck to help us go in for cards like Nightmare Unicorn, SP Little Knight, Appaloosa, and Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax, which is just really good. We then play a single copy of Link Spider. Link Spider is great in this deck to be able to basically use a copy of one of our Scapegoat tokens to step into this card, and it's really nice to be able to do so, especially when you go into your copy of IP Masquerena first, make your copy of Link Spider and one of its arrows, and then make a copy of Link Karibo and one of the other arrows, and then step into something like a copy of Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax using all 3 of these, which is super cool to be able to do. We then play a single copy of Typhon. Typhon's just great in just about any deck, making it a really good card in this build because it's really easy to step into this card. And then finally a single copy of Zeus, just in case we need to board wipe. And it's just an option for the deck. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is wild. I love making 60 card builds every so often on the channel, and this deck was really fun to be able to make. Absolutely crazy being able to play the Helios cards, especially since we have Macrocosmos at 3. Like, look at the size of this deck. It's crazy. And it's really fun to be able to play, to just be able to summon out your copies of Helios to your side of the field in all of its awesome forms. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can come part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.